Hello everyone, and welcome to the McCalls 6696 Sew Along. I am Becky. I can be found as Becky Burns Gibson on Ravelry, Instagram, and Pinterest. So today we're going to be doing the part 1 of the McCalls 6696 Sew Along. We're going to be tracing the pattern and grading it out. Don't skip the step of tracing. You want to save your pattern because you might want to trace out a different size at some point. I use Swedish tracing paper. I think it works wonderfully, but you can use any kind of tracing paper you want. Swedish tracing paper is my favorite though. So come along, we're going to have lots of fun. Begin by ironing your pattern pieces. This will get the wrinkles out and ensure an accurate trace. Just be careful not to burn your pattern pieces. Next, we're to select the view that we want to make, and I'm going to make view B. Next, measure your high bust and your bust. If your bust is up to 2 inches larger than your high bust, use pattern piece 1. If your bust is 2 to 3 inches larger than your high bust, use pattern piece 2. If your bust is 3 to 4 inches larger than your high bust, use pattern piece 3. And I will be using pattern piece 3 for the D cup. So we're going to select the pattern pieces that we need to make for the D cup for view B. And that will include the bodice front, the bodice back, the yoke back, sleeve, band, skirt front, skirt back, pocket, front band, collar, and collar band. Next, we need to look at the sizing. So for me, size 24 is the one that I'm going to choose. That's a 46-inch bust, 39-inch waist, and 48-inch hips. But my size is 48-inch bust, 44-inch waist, and 44-inch hips. So I'm going to have to grade out. So here we have bust weight and hips, measurements for me, measurements for the size 24, and then what adjustment I'll need to make. My bust is 48 inches, a size 24 is 46 inches. So I'll need to make a 2-inch adjustment. For the waist, I am 44 inches. A size 24 is 39 inches. So I'll need to make an adjustment of 5 inches. Hips are 44 inches, and the size 24 has 48-inch hips. So I will not need to make an adjustment for the hips. So we're starting out with piece number 3, the bodice front for a view B and the CD cup. We have the symbol here that says there's an important measurement, here being the bust measurement. We have the finished garment measurements here, which for size 24 is 52 inches at the bust. So if I add 2 inches, that's going to be a finished garment measurement of 54 inches at the bust. I measured around the front pieces and the back pieces and added those up, and it's 46 inches around the waist, finished garment measurement. So if I go up 5 inches, that's going to be at 51 inches finished garment measurement. Again, I'm going up 5 inches, and there are 4 points that are going to be graded out, and that makes 1 1/4 inch graded out in each point. Number 4, the bodice back. So we have to grade out for the bust. We're gonna add 2 inches. 2 divided by the 4 points is 1/2 inch each. So the back we're adding 1/2 inch on each side, and the front we're adding 1/2 inch on each side. And here we're taking the waist again from 46 inches to 51 inches, which is 5 inch upgrade. And we're going to divide that by the 4 points. So we're going to add at each point 1 1/4 inch. There's 2 inches there's 2 points on the front and 2 points on the back. So here we have the sleeve, piece number 6. We have our symbol showing that there's an important measurement. Size number 24 has a measurement all the way across the sleeve of 16 3/4 inches. And I know this is plenty big for my arm size because I have small arms, so I will not need to grade the sleeve at all. Next we have piece number 9, the band. The band is 43 inches long, but it's made for a 39-inch waist. So that means there's 4 inches of ease in the band. And I've got to bring it up to 48 inches to fit my 44-inch waist, having 4 inches of ease. So 48 minus 43 is 5 inches. And again, I've said before that we are increasing the waist size by 5 inches. And there's only 2 edges to the band, so 5 divided by 2 is 2.5 inches on each side of the band. Here we have the skirt front. So we're going to take the waist and increase it by 5 inches. There are 4 points, 2 for the front and 2 for the back, so that's 4. So 5 divided by 4 is 1 1/4 inches. Is going to be where we're going to increase on each point. So that's for piece number 10, and it is also for piece number 11, the skirt back. So it's time to trace out piece number 3, the bodice front, for view B for the CD cup. And we're not going to grade out on the center seam. We're going to grade out on the underarm seam. So go ahead and trace your center seam as normal. Trace the legs of your darts and the circles. Trace the marker for your bust line and trace your grain line. Trace your notches. These are important in the construction of your garment. And continue tracing both the lower and the upper portion of your pattern. And we are going to trace the armhole as normal, because the size of your armhole doesn't change with the size of your bust. Now make a mark 5/8 of an inch in, and make a mark 5/8 of an inch down. And draw a line intersecting. They should intersect perpendicular to one another. Now use the mark for your bust line. Oh, the point of intersection is where you're going to put your pin to pivot your pattern piece. Now use the mark indicating the bust line and draw a line across the bust line. Remove your pins from your tracing paper. Checking my notes. and draw a line 1/2 inch out from the line, the seam line on the pattern piece at the bust line. There's your bust line. Checking my notes again. Now measure 1 1/4 inch out from the waist, from the line on the side seam of the pattern. 1 1/4 inch out. Now take your pen and put it on the intersection of the lines that you drew at the armpit, and move your tracing paper so that the lines on the pattern line up with the lines that you've marked at the bust line. And then trace that seam line down to your bust line. Now measure over 5/8 inch from that line you drew. That's where you put your pen so that you can pivot your tracing paper again to match up the waistline that you marked with the seam on the pattern. And then you trace that line. Go ahead and extend out your waistline. Draw in the legs of your dart and the circles on your dart. Now line up your tracing with the edge of your center seam. And check that to see that you graded it out correctly. Now we're going to mark our pattern. It's piece number 3, bodice front B for C and D cup. I cut 2. and it's McCalls M6696. I've traced a 24, graded out to a 2-inch at the bust, and graded out 5-inch at the waist. I'm also making a notation at the bust line that I've added 1/2 inch. And I'm making a notation at the waistline that I've added 1 1/4 inch. And here we have our finished tracing graded out. So now we are tracing pattern piece number 4, the bodice back. And we're not going to grade out at the center of the back. We're going to grade out at the underarm seam. And there's 2 points on this underarm seam. And then there's 2 points on the front bodice. So that means that when we increase the bust size by 2, divided by 4 is 1/2. And then when we increase the waist by 5 inches, 5 divided by 4 is 1 1/4. So we need to find the bust line, which is not marked on the back. So lay down piece number 3 on top of it and line up the bottom parts of the pattern. And you can see where you need to mark the bodice line. Go ahead and trace the center as normal. And for the bodice back, you cut one of these on the fold. That means you fold the fabric and you place the center, which is the far left of the pattern piece, on the fold. And trace the bottom and the top as normal. And be sure to mark your circles on the top and the bottom, because those are going to be important when you're gathering your fabric. It's a good thing you can erase on Swedish tracing paper. Trace your armhole as normal because your armhole size doesn't change with your bust and your waist. Now measure in 5/8 inch at the underarm. First mark your bust line. Then measure in 5/8 inch at the underarm. Measure down 5/8 inch. Then make the lines intersect perpendicular to one another. Measure out 1/2 inch at your bust line, 1/2 inch from the line on the pattern piece. Then at the waistline, measure out 1 1/4 inch. Now here's where I mess up. I forget to measure in 5/8 of an inch on the upper part of the armhole. And I draw it in incorrectly. That's the bad thing about filming as you're working. You get to see all my mistakes. So I realize what I've done wrong, and I erase to correct it. It's a good thing Swedish tracing paper is erasable. So I'm going to measure in 5/8 of an inch at the top of the armhole. And measure down 5/8 of an inch. intersect those lines so that they're perpendicular to one another. Place your pen where the lines meet. And it just so happens that when you move the tracing paper to line up your measurement that you took for your new bust line, and it just so happens as coincidence that your waist is also lined up with your line that you graded out at the bottom. So I go ahead and I make my new underarm seam line. Adjust your tracing paper to line up the center, the top and the bottom with the pattern piece, and check to see if you graded correctly. Now I'm going to mark my pattern. It is piece number 4, bodice back B. I cut 1 on the fold. It is McCalls M6696, and I traced the size 24, graded out 2 inches at the bust and 5 inches at the waist. You can probably hear my dog Jericho in the background. And I also noted that I added a 1/2 inch at the bust line and added 1 1/4 inch at the waistline. And there we have pattern piece number 4 graded out. So now we're going to trace pattern piece number 5 as normal. It doesn't have to be graded out. Pinning down my tracing paper so there's not going to be any shifting. Mark your circles because that's going to be important in the construction of your garment. As always, mark your notches. And any other markings. Draw in your grain line. And draw in your center back seam. Okay, it is piece number 5. It is the back yoke. We are to cut 2. It's McCalls 6696. And we trace size 24. This is piece number 6, the sleeve. This sleeve goes with view B or view D. Now I didn't have to draw that line so long because I'm using a short sleeve version for version B. But again, when you're doing this and you're taping it as you go, you get to see all my mistakes. I draw in the bottom of the long sleeve even though I'm not going to use it. There's my grain line. I'm going to mark it. And again, I draw it too long. As here, this is the line that I'm going to cut when I cut out these tracings, because I'm doing the short sleeve. Mark all your circles. They'll be important during the construction of the garment. It is pattern piece number 6, the sleeve. We are to cut 2. And we trace to size 24. Now we are cutting or tracing the band, piece number 9. Be sure to draw in your grain line. I have added 2.5 inches to each side of the band. Be sure to mark in your all your pattern construction points. And again, I added 2.5 inches on either side. That grades out the band to 5 inches. Also marked the center back. Mark that your fabric you're to cut 2 and your interfacing you're to cut 1. You can hear my dog barking in the background. This is pattern piece number 10. I have it on the table backwards, so I'm going to flip it over in a moment. Yes, now I have it on the table correctly. So we're going to be grading out along the seam line that has the pockets. And you can tell the seam line that has the pockets because there are circles notating where the pockets go in. And that'll be the side we'll be grading out on. Trace the right side of the pattern as normal. Trace the bottom of the pattern as normal. Trace your grain line. Trace the top of the pattern piece as normal. And for pattern piece number 10, there are pleats along the top that you'll need to trace the leg of the pleats. And then trace an arrow showing the way that the pleat folds. There are small dots and large dots. The instructions in the pattern tell you fold this size dot over toward this size dot. But that to me is unnecessary. As long as you have the legs of your darts marked and then the arrow pointing which way, that's all you really need. So now I'm going to measure over 1 1/4 inch from the seam line of the pattern piece on the top and the bottom. Shift your tracing paper over to where the seam line on the pattern piece meets your markings. Trace your new seam line. Mark your pattern piece as piece number 10. The skirt front, you cut 2, and we traced size 24 and added 5 inches onto the waist. And I also note at the waistline and at the bottom of the skirt that I added 1 1/4 inch at each point. And here we have the traced skirt front. So here we are tracing pattern piece 11, and we are going to upgrade on the side that has the markings for the pockets. Because this is traced very similar to pattern piece number 10, I'm going to speed it up. So again, we are going to mark 1 1/4 inches out and then move our tracing paper to line up our mark with the side seam on the pattern. Here I'm having trouble getting it to line up, so I'm going to pin the bottom. I'm going to line up the bottom and pin it, and then I'll line up the top and pin it. Then I'm going to make my line along the seam line. And then I'm going to make my marks for the pockets. Okay, I'm marking this as pattern piece 11, the skirt back. I am to cut 2, and I traced a size 24 and graded up the waist by 5 inches. And I make a note at the waistline that I have added 1 1/4 inch to the top and to the bottom. And there's our finished tracing for piece 11. Piece number 12 is the pocket. We are to cut 4. There's the grain line, our notches, and then I've noted that the seam allowance is 1/4 of an inch for the pocket, because the standard seam allowance is 5/8 of an inch, so it needs to be noted wherever it's different. Here we have the front band, piece number 17. We're to cut 2 out of fabric and cut 2 out of interfacing. We have our grain line drawn in. Our fold line. Our center front is marked. And our notches. There's a circle here that indicates that it's the top of the front band. And I know, because I've made this dress before, that they have drafted this too short. So I've added 3 inches onto the bottom of it. Piece number 18 is the collar. We cut 2 for fabric and we cut 1 for interfacing. We have notated the center back. We've cut our notches or traced our notches and our circles, which are important to the construction of the garment. We have traced piece number 19, the collar band. We cut 2 of fabric and 1 of interfacing. There are several marks that need transferring over for the collar band. Also, draw in your center back and your grain line. Thank you for joining me for part 1 of this sew-along. The video was quite long, but I was intending for it to be friendly for beginners. The McCalls 6696 dress is a wonderful dress. It fits wonderfully. It comes together wonderfully. The instructions are great. It's a really, really good pattern. And there are many sew-alongs on YouTube. Where mine is different is I am grading out for size. So join me next time for part 2. Bye.